That's awesome, Joey.
Oh, thanks, man.
Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Arctic Axemen. My guest today is none other than Joey Landreth. Joey is a triple threat singer, songwriter, guitarist from Winnipeg, Manitoba. His band, the Bros Landreth, won a Juno for Roots Album of the Year in 2015, carrying the torch from Dwayne Allman and Lowell George, the slide guitar, into this new generation, playing soulful, honest music in a world that's inundated with plastic radio dribble.
Yeah.
So when people say, where's the good music, I always turn them on to Bros Landreth, Let It Lie.
Oh, man.
Or your new solo EP, Whiskey.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you being here, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here.
I mean, Arctic Axeman.
Yeah.
Arctic Axeman.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Winnipeg is not as high up as Saskatoon is home, right, originally?
I'm from Grenfell. Grenfell, Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of on the same plane then.
Yeah, totally.
Like I don't know what the actual parallel is, but it's cold as hell there.
Cold as hell.
And Otto agrees.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss it. Not one bit.
Yeah, so we grew up pretty close to one another, actually. I was in Grenfell. You're in Winnipeg. That's a few hour drive away.
3.5, 4?
3.5. Yeah, about a little over 4. Yeah.
Out the number one, that one?
Yeah. So a lot of my early memories of growing up in the prairies sort of revolve around rodeo. My dad was a trick roper, so on the weekend he would take my sister and I to his gigs. And growing up, I wanted to be a cowboy just like my dad until I discovered rock and roll. So,
natural. Yeah.
So your dad's a musician, and I'm sure it was sort of similar in the way that you went to your dad's gigs. And
absolutely, and it just made me want to be a trick roper, actually. But it wasn't in the cards for me. I really just had to carry on the family tradition, and that's what my dad does. But in the back of my mind, man, it's me, cowboy hat, a handkerchief around my neck, catching cows with ropes.
There's still time.
Thank God. Well, I'll leave room for that dream to come
to fruition. Yeah.
Until then, I'll keep slugging it out on the guitar.
You're doing pretty good, man.
I do it. It's a job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what were like those early memories of growing up around kind of immersed in music, and what were some of the lessons you learned from your dad?
Oh man, so many. My dad was really, really influential in the way that we came up, and both of our parents. My mom, although she was not a working musician, she was the wife of a working musician, and so she was really involved in the community pretty heavily, and she was, she and my dad. I mean, they divorced in the early '90s, but they really made sure that my brother and I kind of knew that if we wanted to be musicians, it was okay. And, my dad sort of gave us the practical lessons, and, my mom was kind of the one going, like, don't be afraid to get a shitty job if you need one. Don't be too proud. Because definitely when you're younger, you're just like, I'm just gonna play guitar all the time, and I'll just figure it out, man. And my mom was like, yeah, that's great, but reality says that when you're, when you got to pay your bills and you don't have enough gigs, well, so that was always like, she was kind of the practical voice in a lot of ways, but she was also really supportive too. So, I mean, the memories, the most important memories for me were like the really young ones, like, going to bed and then, falling asleep while my dad was rehearsing in the living room. Like, there's something about the sound of music coming through floorboards or through the wall that really, really gives me like that homey feeling. There's one of my favorite guitar player, composer, producer guys is a dude named Blake Mills.
Yeah.
And I just love everything he does. But there's one song on his newest record, And at the end of the song, there's this piano outro, and the piano sounds like it's coming from like a room or two over.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of growing up, listening to the piano come through the floor while I'm, you know, falling asleep and having a band rehearse upstairs. Like, it just like, it's a crazy thing. It's just like any of those like early childhood memories like are triggered by the smell of something.
Yeah.
But that for me is really, really heavy. And that was kind of like that, really being immersed in that music was, I mean, I kind of joke like we didn't really have much choice. We kind of had to be musicians. But I do mean it. Like we just, it was such a big part of those early years that, you know, how could you not? Much like watching your dad, you know, go to rodeos and stuff.
Yeah.
You look at your own life and go, how could I not do that?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what happened for us with music, and it was just such a big part of our early lives, and you know, getting dressed up in the middle. Like some of my favorite memories are. There's in Winnipeg we have this thing called the Festival du Voyageur, which is like a massive francophone culture and music festival thing that happens in February, and all the Winnipeg musicians, everybody, it's a really busy time because there's gigs, like so many gigs for a week or 2 weeks, and some of my favorite memories are like getting all dressed up to go to these heated tents in the middle of Whittier Park, and you know, getting to watch my dad play with bands and stuff, and yeah, so I don't know, that those kind of things are like pretty huge in my in the back of my mind. Just that life, getting ready, going to gigs, getting suited up, putting your, you know, watching my dad wash his bass strings after a gig or something. Like, it's just like, how could I not follow in his footsteps? I don't know. I'm blabbing.
Well, it's cool that you did that though, because some people go the opposite, you know, or you saw it and you're like, oh, this is really cool, and you know your brother as well, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah. I suppose. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, people just kind of want to. They're so quick to like, not going to be anything like my folks.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It was a big part of our family's culture was music. Yeah. So I think that was, you know, I didn't see what my dad and my mom were doing as their jobs. It was just like, this is something that we as a family do. Yeah. And continue to, even though my folks are divorced, like we still go see music together, or you know, my mom and dad will come and see us play together or whatever.
Yeah. So. Must be awesome for them to see you guys, you know.
I imagine that would be. I mean, I won't know until I have kids and watch them do something, but I bet you it feels pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What was like some of the music that you were growing up with, you know?
If I think what was spinning on the record player, it was like my mom listened to a lot of Boz Scaggs, Ricky Lee Jones, Bonnie Raitt. What else was on our stereo at home? Robbie Robertson's solo record.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called, but I can see the record cover.
Yeah.
And in my dad's house, it was like Steely Dan, Medeski, Martin and Wood, Jimmy Vaughan. Oh God, what else? Little Feat, of course, was like his favorite. It was Lowell George, where he's from. So it was a pretty eclectic collection of music. Fabulous Thunderbirds. My dad's a really big Kim Wilson fan, so there was a lot of a lot of that kind of stuff in there. So, and Jimmy Vaughan played guitar in that band. So we were getting Texas blues and New York like fusion pop through Steely Dan, and you know, Southern jam rock from Little Feat, and then you know, Bonnie Raitt's blend of kind of bluesy stuff with Southern rock and also soul and R&B. So it was a pretty wide variety of music, and then my own musical tastes from there. I was always really interested in like excellent instrumentalists. Like I really loved like great virtuosic guitar players, but then I also then you go looking through my record collection, I have a Mariah Carey CD. Mind you, she's a virtuosic singer, so that's probably what drew me to it. And my parents never pointed out that it was a weird, you know, like I had like literally Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, Robin Ford, Stevie Ray Vaughan all in the same CD binder, and I was like, this is not weird. Yeah. You know, and then No Effects, I was really into like that punk sort of punk thing. So you know, I'm not not sure exactly why. Maybe like
What
it was about it, but
some about growing up. That's because it's kind of, it's interesting to me that, you know, not only would you listen to this music and you but you liked it. It was your favorite stuff, a lot of it, right?
Totally, yeah.
You know, and with punk rock, I mean, I think everybody kind of goes through their trips, and it just makes sense, you know, when you're a teenager, it kind of speaks to a teenager in some ways. Definitely spoke to me, punk rock, you know, until I got older and my taste sort of grew from that. Mm-hmm. But you're already kind of listening to, you know, the right stuff and digging it, you know?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't cool with my friends.
That's what I was gonna ask, right? Like,
you know,
yeah.
When my friends came over, we put on like Bone Thugs and Harmony. And,
yeah.
You know, so like mid to late '90s hip hop was really cool with you know, with my sort of friends group of the time. So you know, putting on a Stevie Ray Vaughan CD was not the coolest thing. Mm-hmm. Or Celine Dion or Mariah Carey. that is not cool music to play for your friends. Like, no, but I totally love rap, which I do. I really do. I really do continue to listen to a wide variety of music, and I don't know. I'm drawn to people who can't help but do what they do. You know, I'm not really interested in music that is like thoroughly composed, and not that I have anything against it, but I am really inspired by creation. So like, I mean, albums that come to mind are that Blake Mills record. Yeah. Where like
Hi-Ho.
Yeah. And the one before that is so beautiful as well. Yeah. And it's like, you know, some of it's a little left to center for some folks, but it's just it's so unbelievably honest, you know. Wow. And the sounds that he's making are sounds that I believe that he can't help but make. Yeah. You know, and same things with like somebody like Anderson .Paak.
Yeah, he's a great artist. Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. Like I don't think he can make any other sound, and so I'm just drawn to it. Kendrick Lamar, and D'Angelo, and Jimmy Vaughan.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the you know, I was very fortunate to get to sit down and hang out with Jimmy.
You just reminded me of that. I saw a picture. So how cool was that?
Oh, it was the coolest thing in the world. And I mean, I'm such a big fan of his, but you know, we sat down with guitars on and he plugged in and he's like, he can't do anything else. That's just what he does. Yeah. And it's, you know, not that you'd ever want him to, but it's just, it's really cool. You know, because I grew up in a world where being a sideman, the goal was to be as versatile as possible. Yeah. Especially, you know, being in Winnipeg, which is a pretty small community. So as a result, all the players kind of had to be able to do a little bit of everything. And, you know, which was great for my education as a musician, because I would be getting calls to play like a pop gig or a blues gig, or sometimes even like a straight ahead jazz gig or something, which was, you know, certainly not like directly in my wheelhouse. Sure. But you had to be able to kind of get through those situations, and I think it was really good. But so anyways, getting back to the point, like when I hear somebody who's just like, I can't do anything else other than this, I don't know, it's kind of about believability for me. So
conviction and just the whole thing, where it's an artist expressing themselves, like Blake Mills, like you hear him, it's just such a unique expression that he has, right? Yeah. And it's recognizable, like instantly for me.
Well,
that's how I was like, you definitely have that as a guitar player in spades, and a singer. Like Joey played last night with Chris Cadell, the Orbit Room. And, you know, I've seen you play quite a few times. And then last night, it felt like you were even just going a little further and a little deeper into things I haven't heard you explore. So it seems like, you know what I mean, you're you know, going for it in a lot of ways. And I can't really hear the influences. That's why I'm sort of curious. Sometimes I'll hear, you know, the obvious one is Derek Trucks. But it doesn't. But your playing doesn't remind me of his that much. You kind of have your own thing,
right?
Maybe a Ry Cooder, I kind of thought maybe.
I mean, if I was to make an assessment of my own playing, I would say that I'm like, my three really big, four really big slide heroes are Derek, Lowell George from Little Feat, Ry Cooder, and Sonny Landreth.
Yeah.
We list because of there is a very sort of far removed family connection, obviously because of the name. And my dad knows Sonny a little bit. Sonny played on my dad's album in the early '90s, but we're not actually like related or anything. But we listened to a lot of him as a result.
Yeah.
My dad was a fan, and then we were all fans. So I pulled a lot from him, and just because that was when I thought of slide guitar, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
But then the first time I heard Derek Trucks was, I remember kind of trying, because at the time he was really popular, he was showing up in all the Guitar Player magazines, and I was just kind of like, I wasn't interested.
Sure.
And then I just like, I stumbled on him somehow, was like, I mean, I almost went out of my way not to listen to him.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you why.
Yeah.
I mean, I was an idiot, really. But I was young and just was kind of like, yeah, man, there's only one slide guitar player for me.
It's funny how you have those ideas when you're growing up, right?
Yeah. But then I heard him play and was like, oh, man, I'd never heard anybody do that. And then, of course, through him, then I started discovering, like, because he came up with, of course, the almonds, but also like the sacred steel from the gospel churches.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff, like Aubrey Gant, the Campbell brothers, and many, many, many others. Yeah. And that was just kind of an awakening a little bit, because I always found the guitar to be kind of limiting in certain ways, and then when I heard him play, it was like all the limitations that I ever sort of put on the guitar were removed. This guy was doing something so melodic, and everything that I was doing was I was trying to become technically proficient, and learning all my scales and arpeggios and modes and whatever I could access in chord inversions everywhere on the fretboard. Yeah. And this guy was just like, he wasn't. He's a wonderful versatile guitar player. Yeah. But he wasn't concerning himself with that. He was like, melody came first.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really heard anybody do that, so it really drew me to the slide guitar, and that's when I started putting the slide on my finger and started noodling around. Was when I heard him for the first time, and then going like Ry was massive in my household as well. Like my dad is a huge Ry Cooder fan, and our family tends to like when we like a record, we wear it out.
Oh yeah.
So it was like Ry Cooder's Borderline or Bop Till You Drop.
I got those the vinyls of those.
Oh too. Yeah, they're like they were on kind of so then a lot of those sounds started making sense to me, because when I was growing up, it was kind of like, that's just this weird music my dad listens to.
Yeah.
But then it started making sense, and then so I don't know, like, to get back to my point, if I had to assess my own playing, it would be like kind of a bad imitation of all those three guys smashed together.
Oh, it worked. And then even sometimes some of the things you were doing, it kind of reminded me of like John Scofield a bit.
Oh, and
there was a little bit of that I could hear,
Sure. I love Scofield.
Yeah.
One of the big records in my house, I mentioned Medeski, Martin and Wood, but was the Scofield record of Go Go.
Yeah.
And Medeski, Martin and Wood were the band on that, and so that was a pretty big part of it for sure. But yeah, I just like all that. I like all that vocabulary, and I like listening to people kind of just go on adventures a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah, kind of go for it, and
and test your own boundaries, and test your own like the boundaries of your ears, like what you're used to hearing, and I think a lot of times we get so locked into our idea of what guitar playing is, or what soloing is, or what writing is, that we kind of forget to go, well, what happens if we do something different?
Yeah.
And that's always where good things happen for me. It's
yeah.
When I go, okay, I'm gonna try different tuning, or I'm gonna try, I always start writing in this same place. I'm gonna try doing something else, like a different key, or a different room in the house, or whatever. Just like you gotta, and I'm a ridiculous creature of habit. Like, I have the same schedule. I eat the same thing for breakfast. I grind my beans for 11 seconds. I sit in the water for 4 minutes. Like, I am such a creature of habit.
Yeah.
So for me, changing those things out is a big part of it. And so, as a result, when it comes to music, and I just really like to go on those little adventures that are going to take me outside of those rituals,
Well, I think that's why you sound to me like you're one of the most exciting guitar players I've ever heard, because you're going for it, and it doesn't sound like it's just when you think it's going to go somewhere, sometimes in a solo, you know, when you hear it, and then you kind of go, you take a left turn. You know what I mean? Sometimes, right?
I mean, and sometimes that's just. I mean, that's just as much for like, I want to see if I can freak the audience out. You know? See if they're paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all fun. It's all good fun.
Yeah, here. So, like, were you playing in open tuning, like, as a teenager when you started?
As a teenager, no. I started in standard tuning.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't start playing in open tunings until probably, now if I actually look back on it, probably when I was about 24 was Derek. Like, I knew Derek was playing in open E, and I kind of got to a place where playing slide in standard tuning, I didn't feel like I could get all the things that I wanted to get.
Yeah.
So then I started doing that, and then when the brothers Landreth when Dave and I started writing together, originally the brothers Landreth was going to be an acoustic duo with me playing resonator and my brother playing a ukulele bass. And I just thought, it'd be kind of interesting to, like, you know, because I make my living. At the time I was playing guitar for pop country acts, so it was like, I'm always playing like either a Les Paul or a Telecaster, or, you know, both.
Sure.
And so I was like, what would be a nice and fun departure, just to sort of clear the palette, would be to do something totally different. So I was like, let's write a bunch of songs like in this format. So I'll play resonator and open tuning, and all the songs from our Let It Lie record were written in open tuning. And, you know, so we started playing shows, and it was like, well, I gotta have guitars in open tuning. It only makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was, you know,
just kind of a natural.
It was kind of a natural progression. Yeah. And then, you know, at the time I was still working with a lot of other people, and I was struggling with going back and forth between the tunings. So that was kind of when I went, I wonder if I can just get away with doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And for the first couple of years, it was kind of a disaster, you know.
Sure.
Not entirely,
but you throw yourself into it, and
well, I mean, I was playing. I was playing in dance bands, and, you know, I still to this day in Winnipeg, we have a house gig on Tuesday nights, and of course I don't live there now, but you know, when I go back in town, I can always go and sit in with the band and stuff. But you know, so we'd play like Michael Jackson tunes and Sly Stone and, you know, old funk tunes and stuff like that. And so it was a good education to go, you know, okay, I know all these chords, and I know I can break them down. So how can I make it work on the, you know, like a 9 chord, like, for example.
Yeah.
Like kind of like that kind
of. Yeah, the James Brown sort of.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, what is that? That's like, you know, if I'm playing C9.
Yeah.
It's like G minor over C. So then, like, because a lot of those voicings don't translate to the tuning, then I have to really understand, okay, what's the breakdown of it. So, you know, so really helped me start to understand harmony a lot more, because I was forced to break it down in a different way than what I was used to looking at it, you know, because with guitar players, we're always like, this shape makes this chord.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and a lot of times, like, didn't necessarily know why something sounded good, or so switching over to the open tuning really forced me to kind of explore that, and gave me access to a lot more things.
Yeah.
You know?
I love the way the low tuning sound. Like, I love open tuning as well, you know. Mm-hmm. See, the first person I heard playing open tuning was actually a Winnipeg girl, Carol Loft.
Carol Loft, you know her? Carol Loft, yeah.
She played at my school, and she when I was in
cool.
high school, and just doing, you know, finger picking, and she played like DADGAD tuning and stuff. And it just resonated with me. I'm like, what is that? I need to, you know, figure that out. And I never heard. And then when I tried to do it, you're kind of left with none of the things you already know. So you're forced to kind of search and use your intuition and your ears. And there's not a lot of information for learning that. So you actually kind of sat there and said, okay, well, if I got this in standard, and you just broke it all down. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I teach a fair amount these days, and I'm always kind of having these conversations with students where, you know, we start off, we're the only instrument that there's a real shortcut from, that sort of goes past understanding the fundamentals of music, and you can go straight to playing sweet stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the guitar is kind of one of the only instruments you can do that with. And it's like, for some reason, it's okay. Whereas, like, if you were taking cello lessons, your teacher would be like, what do you mean you don't want to read music? You don't play the cello and not read music. You know, I mean, unless maybe you play cello in a folk band or something. Which, I mean, there's nothing to say that there's anything wrong with that. However, you know, we are, as guitar players, often are lacking that fundamental knowledge of like, hey, like, what's in this chord? What notes are in this chord? You know, so to say to somebody like, oh, I can play G minor over C, and that's going to give me that 9 sound. So like, I'm not limited to playing one chord voicing, because I know like on this group of strings, I know 3 voicings for G minor. So if I play that over C, over C, you know, I have already, because I'm not just thinking about one thing and one shape and one pattern. It's already expanded by kind of just passively knowing like, okay, C9 is a chord with a lot of notes, but G minor is not a chord with a lot of notes.
And how did you just came to that conclusion on your own?
Just by looking at it and kind of going like,
trying to make some kind of connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at a 9 chord on in standard tuning, like, you know,
something like that, or like a
exactly.
G9 like that.
This top 3 notes, that's a minor chord.
That's right.
So I was like, okay, what minor triad is that?
And so you got
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, well, I know that with a triad, I can invert it 3 ways. I can go 1-3-5, 3-5-1, 5-1-3.
And you find your inversions and start working through them. Yeah.
By knowing that chord exists inside of the C9, and of course, like so many chords can be broken down this way.
Yeah.
So, but that was something that I got from exploring open tuning, and it really, really, really helped me expand my understanding of harmony, chord theory.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, which is a total gift, because it's like I love harmony. Like I'm a total student of it, and you know, I'm always trying to learn more.
I can tell, because you do a lot of sort of almost like walking bass lines and stuff like that, and you're switching. Even in a solo, you'll kind of move through some chords and do some chord style soloing and stuff like that. It seems you know the ins and outs of harmony pretty good.
I like to play.
It's cool. And also with the vocals, that was one of the first things that just Tapping on the Glass was the first video I saw. It was because Don Ross was talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I checked it out, and you know, cool guitar. You're playing a Gibson and that, and was the vocals though? Because I never heard, like, I don't think there's outside of you guys, I can't think of another group that really exists that does the harmonies in the way that you do them.
Oh, right.
You know.
Well, I mean, we've been sort of compared to the Eagles, and those guys are absolute harmony badasses. I don't feel like we deserve that comparison, but I mean, we're certainly not the only band to be singing like that. But it's.
I just mean like these days, like I would think of it's natural to think of the Eagles, that scene in their documentary.
It's not a huge part of what a lot of people are doing. Well, although that's not true. A lot, like more and more people are doing it. But it's just honestly, it's just an extension of my own interests. Yeah. Because I like harmony. And I like it on the guitar, and I like it with voices, and I like it on the piano, and I like it in string sections. What's the Dr. Seuss thing? I don't know why I'm going there. Never mind. Ignore me. We can edit that out, right? Strange caffeine-induced tangent. But I do. I like harmony in any shape or form, and so it was just kind of a natural progression to start exploring arranging harmony for vocals. You know, because it's what I had readily available, and we were making a record, and so it was like, let's throw some more in that.
So there's something too, like you and your brother, or two brothers, you know, I think of like Chris and Rich Robinson or something, like Wiser Time, or just the way the two sort of brothers, the way their vocals sort of blend in a nice, unique way, right?
Well, and that was kind of an interesting thing, because my brother was he always sang, but he was never like a vocalist in the early days of his sort of side manning. And so when we put together the band, and we were going to do the acoustic duo thing, we wrote "Tapping on the Glass" was the first song that we wrote, And I listened back to like the little voice memo and heard him singing harmonies. Like, hey, that sounds pretty good. Like, my voice and your voice kind of sound the same. I mean, it makes sense because we're brothers.
Yeah.
But, interesting. And, you know, that kind of spurred on, like, well, we should definitely take advantage of that. We should make sure that you have a microphone in front of you whenever we play. And, you know, so, and then we got geeky about it and made the arrangements more and more complex, and then had to add other band members to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's got to be, you guys must practice a lot, just singing the harmonies. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I've tried, it's just hard to hear it. You got to have a great ear.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, a lot of hours in the van singing over stuff and practicing and, you know, trying to figure out how to make everybody's voices fit in there and make them make sense. It certainly is a lot of work, but it's really, really worth doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys it makes your band sort of that much better too, right? You got that other thing, you know?
Yeah.
When you guys write harmonies, is there a certain sort of thing you say, like, oh, if I'm singing this, we'll go a third or a fifth, or how do you think of harmonies? How do you write them? Do you sit down with the guitar and write them, or do you start singing them and try to find something that fits?
Nowadays, I mean, mostly arranging happens in my head. It kind of depends. Like again, I've descended pretty deep into the geekdom of it. So, I mean, it starts with having a really good understanding of intervals, and so like I always know where I am in terms of intervals when I'm singing. So if the melody, if you're singing Happy Birthday, I know that the melody starts on the 5.
Yeah.
And so if I'm starting on the 5 and I want to make 3-part harmony, then I have to have somebody singing the 3rd of the chord and the 5th of the chord, and then it becomes a bit of a like a bit of a paint by numbers. So melody is taking care of certain notes of the chord. Yeah. And then I just have to fill in the blanks around it, and I want to do it in a way that's efficient so that chords aren't jumping around in weird orders. So, if you're going Happy Birthday to you, 5 5 6 5 1 7, and then I'm gonna go, okay, well then the next note above the 5 is probably gonna be the root of the chord, and then underneath the 5 I'll put the 3rd. So if the root is going on top, then the root's kind of got to move with the melody as well, but it's got to make sense to the chords underneath. So it is kind of a bit of a paint by numbers, to put it simply. And then once I have a basic, like, just because we're talking about it, but I'll arrange something so that, if we're taking something like Happy Birthday, I have
exactly
simple, and then I'll start to go, how can I make that more exciting? Do I add a 4th part so that it's a little more barbershop-y, or do I start to put in some substitutions so that it's a little more interesting, or do I spice those chords up just so that they've got a little more oomph on them? Like it really depends on what I'm trying to do with the arrangement. But I always start with that basic, like if you're basically trying to always be using triads that are existing in the key, and like if you're playing Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday to you, then I want to build the harmonies based on those chords. So I'm keeping that in mind. So if I'm playing the 1 chord, I don't necessarily want to be building a 5 chord over the top of it. Yeah. Unless that's the sound you're going for. Which is a cool sound. But it's not always what you're after. But so I mean, to put it like, that's kind of the Coles Notes version of the way I approach that. And then I have little tricks for how to arrange the voicings of the harmonies that I like. Yeah. And everybody likes different sounding things. Yeah. I've always been a big fan of like the vocal arrangement on Vince Gill records.
Oh, he was my first favorite guitar player.
Oh man, he is a monster singer. Yeah. But and my first gig where I really had to do a lot of background harmony singing, and I was singing with people who like, it was, I was playing in a country band with a fiddle player and sometimes even a steel player, and they all sang, and my approach to harmony singing was always like, I'll just whip something out there and throw it out, and but it was never like, I never built my parts considering that I was going to be singing with other people. Yeah. So then I really, like, when I got that gig, I played the first show, and the fiddle player was like, hey, nice job. You really have to learn those vocal parts, though.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you did an okay job of filling in.
Yeah.
But if you want to do a really good job of those harmonies, go to the record and learn the part from the record. And so then I went and learned all the parts from the record, because I was like, I don't understand why these parts are written this way.
Yeah.
And so the only way that I'm going to understand why they're written that way is if I learn them inside and out.
Yeah.
And that really, so I tend to like that almost country sounding, you know, very pure 3-part harmony, not a lot of dissonance. But then I'm also a chord geek, so then I start to like adding.
You start going a little get into
notes,
it.
nice here.
Yeah. Kind of experiment with all
the extensions and whatnot. Yeah, but I do tend to start with that core.
Yeah.
That core 3-part triad thing.
Oh, it's awesome. And yeah, when I bought the Let It Lie record, after seeing that video, I bought it immediately and played it to death. But you know, just the way it starts, I could tell I would like it. Just your slide guitar on the resonator in the beginning. But the thing that really struck me, as I find with is your vocals. You know, the guitar playing is great, but your singing, it's like it matches your playing, which is very rare for guitar players to be able to do. Not a lot of guys can sing, write their songs, be able to and be able to sing the way that you do as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So is that something that you start singing early?
I've always been a singer. I was always the little kid singing, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, I started singing in choirs, or you know, middle school choirs, high school choirs. And and I always really loved singing, and then started my own band, and it, you know, kind of became a bit of a part of my identity. It was always, for me, singing was always was a bit of a business strategy. Like, I'm a good guitar player, but I may not be as good as the next guy for the gig, but I sing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so so that definitely, like, because I was not, as far as a sideman goes, I was not the best sideman for a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
But because I was good enough for the gigs and I sang, I ended up getting a lot of gigs.
Sure.
And then that helped. But yeah, like I said, starting the band, we really kind of wound up making that a part of my identity, and in the last 5 years, I've really started to work on my voice and like work on it the same way that I would work on guitar playing, practicing stuff. And
what do you practice? Do you do warm-ups and stuff like that?
Oh,
or
yeah.
do you,
Definitely warm-ups.
Yeah.
But a big part of, you know, because I'm an instrumentalist first, and it's kind of ingrained in me to be, you know.
Yeah.
You know, like those kind of fundamental things. I do a lot of those kind of fundamental things with my voice.
Do you okay?
Arpeggios and scales.
Do you sing them with your guitar? Or do you have a sort of
No,
a
I sing them on my own.
Okay.
I tend to like to separate the voice and the guitar, because I think some like unhealthy crutches can develop.
Sure.
Like, a lot of people learning a harmony, for example, they'll go, oh, let me just play it on the guitar first.
Yeah.
And that's great,
yeah,
especially when you're first trying to do it. But if you can't pick
Hear
those notes out by ear, you know, after a while, then, you know, you're just kind of stunting your own growth by not forcing yourself to go, okay, like, if this is my root and I'm singing dee 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 dee,
yeah,
I want to know where my 5 is.
Yeah,
my 3,
you can hear it. Yeah.
my major 7.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to know where all those notes are. I want to be able to pull them out of the air because I know where they are.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for me. Is I don't. I've never. I think it's because I'm that creature of habit. Like, the idea of kind of guessing where a part is just makes me feel anxious.
Oh yeah.
And so if I don't have a solution, then I go looking for a solution. So, like, you know, if it's like things like I can't pick out a 6th. So then, you know, my Barney lies over the ocean, like things like that.
Yeah. You'll use song references and stuff to kind of
certainly in the early. Actually, for me, it was with my dad. He always liked songs that were 1-6-2-5s. So when I wanted to figure out what a 6 was, I'd go 1-6-2-5, 1-6-2-5, because we played a lot of those in the band. So yeah, like little things like that, like little triggers and landmarks, I call them, that kind of help you get around things that you can, you know, if you can find the root, then usually the fifth is pretty easy to find because they're that relationship, that sort of perfect relationship between a 1 and a 5 or a 1 and a 4 are kind of easy to lean on, and then anything in the middle, like I kind of feel like if you can find the 5, then you can find the 6.
Yeah.
If you know where the 5 is, then the 6 is not far away.
Yeah.
And if you know where the 1 is, then the 2 or the 7 are not far away because it's just one scale tone above or one scale tone below, and that's kind of what I teach people. Like if you really know, ultimately, if you know where your chord tones are, 1 3 5 1 5 3 1, then you can get to any other note.
Yeah.
So it's really good to be aware of that. And if you're not 100% sure, just take a second to go, when I'm singing this note, what note is it? Happy birthday. What?
Yeah, figure it out.
I look at my scale and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that's what a 5. Yeah. That's what a 6 sounds like.
Yeah.
I think. It's kind of an interesting thing. Like, having ears. I think it's less like I don't innately just know what everything sounds like, but in action I know what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So I mean, like when you hear like that chord.
Yeah.
To me that's like the Hendrix chord.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it's a 7 sharp 9. I know that it's a 7 sharp 9 because it sounds like that Hendrix chord.
Of course. Yeah, you make connections that way and stuff like that.
I'm not hearing each individual note.
Yeah.
And if I start adding, like, I don't necessarily know that that's a flatted 5 because I'm counting through the scale in my head light and quick, but I just know that when I add that kind of like tension to that Hendrix chord, that's a flat 5. You know what I mean? Like it's less about...
it's emotion. It becomes an emotional response to it,
Totally.
which otherwise the scales use those if you can't really kind of make that and know how it sounds and kind of, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a series of notes you could play up and down without, really kind of...
Yeah, and that's a big part of the things that I teach is like the relationships and being aware of the relationships.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at a chord progression like a 1 4 5 or just 1 and 4, like two different major chords to themselves, they have their own interrelationship, which is root 3rd and 5th.
Yeah.
But if I go to the 4 chord, I'm still in the key of the 1 chord.
Yeah.
So what's the relationship between the notes in the 4 chord and the 1?
Yeah.
So like, the root of the 4 chord is the 4. The 3rd of the 4 chord is the 6.
Yeah.
And the 5th of the 4 chord is the 1. So I just know that that's what's happening when I switch to the 4 chord. So when I'm soloing, I'm thinking about what are those notes again in that 4 chord, 4, 6, and 1. Okay, I'll make sure that I hint at those notes when I'm playing melodies.
Sure.
And I always tell students, like, somebody said I got to learn to play the changes better. Like, I don't know how to do that. What scales do I use? It's like, you want to play the chord changes, play the notes in the chord. Don't worry about the scale notes. Like, scale notes are like icing.
Yeah. It took me forever to... I really push that on my students now, but it took me forever to know that. You know what I mean? Yeah. To know, like, why does it sound... Why when I, listen to a certain guitar player, why are they getting that sound? It doesn't sound like... It's sort of the thing, and that was what it always came down to. Well, they're hitting the right notes once a chord.
Notes at the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like,
and it makes an effect.
Weird. That's weird that works.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because again, that's another sort of like illness of the guitar player is we just go, oh, what chord is that? Oh, it's 13 sharp 11. You go, cool. What scale do I use to?
I know.
Over that? Go, what notes are in the chord? You know, and to come back to what we were talking about like a while ago is. I'll break down something that's more complex, like, using that 13 sharp 11, and I'll look at it like, okay, what are the simple notes in a chord like that?
Yeah.
13 sharp 11 is that kind of like almost James Bondy sounding chord.
Yeah.
And to me, it's got, if I'm in the key of C, it's got a D major triad, and then the sort of root and 7th. I mean, there's more going on than that, but to break it down simply, and so if I'm soloing, I'm thinking. C7 mixed in with D major.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a lot easier than going, what scale does that come through? And what mode do I use to the It's like start with the notes in the chord if you want to play deep inside the chord.
Yeah.
Figure out how to make melodies with the notes inside the chord.
Yeah.
And then those, the other notes around them, they start to they're really just there as stepping stones to get you to chord tones.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a simple way of kind of describing what you're trying to accomplish when you're playing the changes. But how do we get on that topic? We were talking about singing, like.
Oh yeah, singing. Yeah. So yeah.
We're having fun.
Okay. We're having a lot of fun. So yeah, and it was also like so
covering all the bases.
Yeah. Yeah, harmonies and working. Just working on your ear as you're working on singing. It sounds like to me as well. What are some of the other things that you do? Because I feel like singing is just like it's like a secret club that singers don't usually talk about.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, like I said, I approach it like relatively cerebrally. Like, you know, when I'm working on my voice, I'm working on specific things. You know, I have the things that I struggle with. You know, I'm really not in other people, but in my own voice, I'm really sensitive to pitchiness. So I always work on intonation a lot. That's a big part of my practice regime. So like I have this CD that a friend of mine gave me of cello drones that go through all 12 keys, and it's like 5 minutes on each note, and it's just like a G for 5 minutes. And so I'll just sing like and just go through and go, okay, and just really try and make sure that those notes are in tune. And when I've discovered by doing that for some crazy reason, I always sing the interval of a fourth. Doesn't matter what I'm singing, what melody. If I'm singing a harmony, I always sing that note sharp, like quite sharp. In my head, my entire life as a singer, my head thinks that a fourth is just a little more sharp than it is. And so I've been working on trying to sing those intervals a little bit flatter so that they actually are in tune. Yeah. But in my mind, this note sounds like this, and then when I hear it, especially when I'm recording and stuff like that, because it's always like, oh man, everything sounds good in that except for that one note is just a little out of tune. And I go, which one? And I'll sing it again, and like, yeah, same thing, that note's out of tune. Really? I think it's in tune. They go, well, come and listen. And I'll listen and go, no, you're right, it's out of tune. Yeah. But in my head, while I'm singing it, sounds in tune. It's like this really weird thing. Huh. So I've been working on that. And so you know, things that I do is like, I'll count up the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you think it's the half step that makes it a little tricky too?
I don't know, because an interesting thing is that if I come down to the note from the fifth, 5, 4, it's okay. But when I go up to the note from the third, 3, 4, I'll push it sharp. Yeah. But and that's in my practice, so I'll kind of help set the precedent by coming down from the fifth. But when I'm singing a melody, doesn't matter what's going on, I sing it out of tune. It's crazy. It's so frustrating. Huh. So frustrating. And so in order to sing those notes in tune, when I'm like, if I'm singing on, like singing background vocals, like for my own stuff, or for somebody else's project, which I do a fair amount of, I always know which harmony has the fourths in them, and then I do my best to sing them flat. So in my head they sound flat, and then when I listen back, they're in tune. It's the weirdest thing. It's a strange way to interact with music, but it is like, I'm really passionate about that kind of stuff. When I started doing the solo stuff, I was really self-conscious of just the things that I felt were weak in my playing, you know, and you get so accustomed to playing with a band, and then you can, you know, I can stop playing in certain points and just kind of lean on that. And you can't do that when you're by yourself, or at least if you're going to do that, you have to be trying to create a moment somewhere, you know, and it can't just be because you're lost. Yeah. So I just started working on it, and I experimented with a bunch of different things, including like, you know, the electro harmonics freeze pedal. Yeah. A lot of people like that. I really like that thing. Yeah. And it's really fun because it's a neat way to create some texture, but it's also not time based, so it's not, you know, it's not like a looper. It's more of a textural thing, and so I started experimenting with running the freeze into an eventide pitch factor on the quadrivox setting, and then I had different presets to take the note from the freeze and turn it into chords. Okay. And I went through and programmed all the keys and all the different chord changes that I wanted to make in a bunch of different presets on this thing, and I had it on another pedal board and brought it out to a gig, and my manager was there, and he was like, man, when you're switching those chords on the pedal board, all I can hear is the buttons.
Yeah.
And it's really distracting.
Yeah.
And it was like, I lost a week to that. I spent a week programming these stupid chords into that thing. And it was cool, but ultimately it wound up taking away from the music. And he was the first one to go like, you know, man, you're standing out there by yourself playing the electric guitar. You want to take solo? Just take a solo.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not gonna sound like a guy's playing a solo in a band. That's okay. It doesn't have to. That's not what you're doing. You're playing a solo show. And so it took me a while to really get comfortable with the idea that what I was doing, and I'm not at all saying that I don't love people who are looping, but when I'm doing my thing, I don't really, and I'm playing by myself, I don't really want to have that kind of experience, you know, because it's like, man, if I were to play the songs on my record and loop them like that, they're not going to be anywhere near as cool sounding as when the band plays them.
Yeah.
And so, why try?
Yeah.
Like, how about I'll just play these songs in their simple form when I'm by myself, and then I'll come back and bring the band, and it'll be a totally different experience, you know? That to me kind of was where I wound up going. And then so the solo show, I just really wanted it to, I wanted to work on it so that I did feel confident in my ability to just play.
Yeah.
Just play and sing. And so I kind of stopped thinking about all that extra gadgetry stuff and just like what's important to me is having good time and, you know, being able to play the guitar parts confidently, but also be able to focus on trying to sing well, you know, because a lot of times when you're singing and playing, one takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You don't play quite as well when you're singing well, or you don't sing as well if you're playing well. And so it was a lot of repetition of like, you know, like a song like Made Up Mind, I spent a lot of times going... hours and hours playing that same pattern over and over. So that's
a fun one to play, the sounds of it.
It's super fun. Yeah, it's really, really fun.
Yeah.
But so that, you know, when I was ready to start singing over it, I didn't have to think about it as much. And that's kind of like, that's a big part of prepping for a show is like, you always just want to get yourself to the point where you don't have to think about the fundamentals of the part. I'm not worried about, what chord is this? Or what's my part again? Like I know them so well that I can go on autopilot, and then I can play this well, and then also be able to sing well. It's just time. It's just hours.
Oh, I know. You know? Yeah.
I think though a lot of people, like a lot of my students, they're hoping for some shortcut. It's like,
there's none. Yeah.
There's no shortcut. It's like sitting there going, damn it, 3, 4, it's done. You know, there's so much of that. So, you know, my arrangement of Hallelujah, I Love Her So.
Oh man, I love that arrangement.
My part Anna, man, when I was learning, I came up with the arrangement because of there's a Jerry Reed version.
I haven't heard that.
It's amazing, and I borrowed a lot from that, and he starts his out with that. He starts it with that thing, and so I loved that, and I wanted to transcribe it, and it's kind of a hard fingering, and so man, I must have played it for 2 or 3 days, and by the end, Anna was just like, I need you to take a break from that. Like, cool. I love you. I cannot wait to hear this arrangement when it's done. I mean, she didn't actually ask me to stop playing it, but she's just like,
just needed a break.
That's a lot of that same thing. Like,
yeah. Steve Vai talks about the ultra zone of basically, you know, you're starting to get something when you're starting to hate it.
Yeah. Louis C.K. says the same thing about hunger. You know, you don't eat until you're not hungry anymore. You eat until you hate yourself.
I love that bit. I don't. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's ultimately the thing that separates a lot of people from getting to that next sort of spot is just being willing to lose those hours to those things, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people glossing over certain things because you go, good enough, you know. And I think there has to be a definitely a moderate level of obsession.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
to drive you to even want to do that is...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I want to play that, but I want it to be... I want it to be clean. Obviously, that was not. But, you know, I want it to be clean, and I want it to groove, and I want it to be, you know, kind of funky. So,
and you can just be in it.
I have to work on all three of those things separately.
Yeah.
Got to get it clean first. Then I got to get it nice and in time, and then I got to get it to feel funky, and like, you know, the whole thing is it takes a long time.
Yeah.
But you're always better at the end. Like, when you spend 3 days learning an intro of an arrangement, man, it's just like, by the time you're done, that's something I can do now, and I can do it with a bunch of different things too, you know, if I set my mind to it. So it's always worth doing.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, you got to be willing to just sit there and like drool.
Yeah.
But
I think it's good to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people, they don't realize that part of it, that craziness, that thing that drives you to sit there for 3 days just doing that one thing until you get it, you know.
Yeah, it is a funny thing. I mean, I struggle with that, because I mean, like, obviously if somebody delivers a compliment, you always want to say thank you, but sometimes it's hard to have somebody go, oh, you're just so talented.
Oh, I know.
It's like, oh, that's a very lovely and kind thing to say, but this is not talent.
Yeah.
This is just hard work.
Yeah.
You know, like, and not to say that talent isn't a thing, but like being able to play something like that little intro is like, man, that was 3 days of work.
Oh yeah.
And it was not talent that allowed me to learn that part.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like I heard Paul Gilbert say, like, people say that to him, and he said they forget I've spent more time playing guitar than anybody's probably done of anything in their whole life.
Yeah.
It's like I can't do anything else really. That's the amount of time it's spent, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for people to. There's got to be something driving you to want to put in that time to begin with, right?
I'm glad that you say that, because that's the thing that I think is a bit of an intangible, like, because the ability on an instrument is hard work, but the love for the hard work is a different thing.
Yeah.
And where that comes from, I'm not sure. But what I can say is that I've had the very, very good fortune to make friends with other people who are as passionate about their craft as I am about mine. But I've got a friend who makes steel body resonators down in Michigan named Matt Ike. He makes mule guitars. Yeah. And he's as geeky about building guitars as I am about the guitar, playing the guitar and singing and writing songs, you know. And so, although our craft is different, and he's a lovely guitar player himself, but our craft is different. But we bond over the work.
Yeah.
And then he has his friend named Conrad Sauer, who's in Kitchener, and he builds hand planes. He builds these really beautiful hand planes. And so I met Matt in Kitchener because he was coming up to visit Conrad, and so I split the drive. I drove out to Kitchener to pick up a guitar that he'd made me, and we wound up striking up this really beautiful friendship between the three of us. And although, you know, Conrad built 2 guitars, but he's not really a guitar player. He builds he's a carpenter who builds hand tools, and Matt's a guitar player, but he's essentially a luthier who builds guitars. But the three of us connected over the craft.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter that I didn't know anything about woodworking. When Conrad was telling me about woodworking, I totally got it, because it was like, that's how I think about harmony on the guitar.
Yeah.
And it's the same way. I want to know every little,
you
know, and when I find something that I don't
gotta have it all, right?
Totally. So to get back to that whole talent, hard work conversation, I do believe that there is some sort of, like, spiritual, intangible thing, but I don't think it's in the ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's you know, when somebody says, "Oh, I could never do that. I don't have the talent." It's like, no, you totally could.
Yeah.
You totally could. Was I born with the knowledge of this tuning? No.
Yeah. You learn it.
You learn it. Yeah. You totally learn it. And I mean, anyways,
I found, like, as well, like, I've seen some talented people, you know, who kind of have a natural talent, but usually they lack that other thing that makes them want to actually, because they don't realize that, oh, maybe it is a little, you know what I mean? They don't, they might not have that. It's like hard work will beat it, you know what I mean? You know.
And it's an interesting thing to talk about, because I think it's not necessarily like if somebody has a natural predisposition to something, it's almost most definitely because they have spent time honing a skill in a different department that lends itself to that.
Yeah.
Like, still, like, and it's like that book, that whole 10,000 hours thing.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And somebody goes, oh, like, this is a total outlying thing. It's like, no, it's not. You just didn't ever see any of the back. Like, some dude is not built sweet at hockey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their parents put them into hockey when they were 6 or 4.
Yeah.
And they start ice skating. And, and it's like, it's no wonder that by the time they're 15, they're monstrous hockey players. But, nobody thinks about any of that as work.
No.
And the time that I spent as a 15-year-old kid, like, blasting very poorly through my homework in school so that I could pick up my guitar.
Sure. Yeah.
I never looked at that time as working.
Yeah.
To me, that was just
playing,
like,
right?
This is my time.
Yeah.
But it is. It's absolutely work. And like when I was learning Stevie Ray Vaughan licks and like rewinding them time and time and time again so that I could get it just right, that didn't feel like work, but that's the true definition of work.
Yeah. There were a few things when I like heard Bros Landreth first, and then I kind of looked and I saw your EPK and like had the record. And then like David was saying like how he kind of felt that you would always start your own band or like front a band, and it just to me hearing it and hearing your voice and your guitar is like obvious. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'd also heard that song like Our Love or something like that, like it took you sort of years to kind of work that out, and sort of like, were you writing songs early on, or were you just kind of...
No, I mean, I always wanted to write songs. I always struggled to finish songs, and so Our Love like started off as a song idea. I think I started writing it in like 2006, maybe, probably 2006, 2007. I started writing in 2007, and then didn't finish it until later.
Yeah.
So that was not something that came naturally to me, and it's I always kind of wrote songs as a bit of a function, like a function of my own sort of emotional struggles, like in terms of like having a hard time expressing feelings and stuff. And so writing songs was cathartic for me, because I was not, I struggled with communicating those things to people and loved ones, and so I would write a song instead. And so that became a big part of that process. And so, if I didn't have anything to worry about, I wasn't writing songs. But now I'm in this thing now. I'm 2 records deep. I'm in the process of working on my 3rd and 4th at the same time right now, and so songwriting is now a different thing. Like it's not so much out of necessity as it is much like a craft in other ways. And I mean, I still lean on my own personal experiences to help inspire stories, but the actual craft of it now is I'm trying to become a better craftsman in the songsmith department, and so I'm and it's fun, and I really, really enjoy it, and so it's become much like the way I approach a lot of things within my craft is, how can I make this song better? Like, okay, I've got these feelings, great, good place to start. I've got a bit of a story, awesome. I've got these words. How can I make them better? How can I make this melody more singable? Whereas, in the past it was mostly just like, I just want to be as emotional as possible, which is great. But now I'm a little more focused on like, how can I make this so that it's gonna stick in your head, like glue,
Yeah.
And I still don't believe that I've written any songs that really accomplish that, but it's the pursuit,
Yeah.
For me is as important as getting results. It's just chasing it down and trying.
So I was wondering like how you approach soloing and stuff like that. So like something like Whiskey, if you just have like a G, an E minor, and an F is what you're soloing over. Mm-hmm. Maybe first we'll play for a bit, and then you could kind of
absolutely.
Your thoughts. So if we have. Awesome. Joey's just plugged into a straight cable to Fender Champ, so nothing to hide behind. It sounds awesome.
Champ doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. So how do you approach them? Because I noticed when I was just kind of listening to the solo and trying to dissect a couple licks, like you kind of alter between a little bit of a major and a minor sort of third sound, right?
Yeah, sure.
You do that, you throw it in a bit because you're kind of hitting the right there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean that in that tune is I kind of for the solo in Whiskey I wanted to really sort of tip my hat to the vocal melody, you know.
Yeah, because you can hear that right off the bat.
And I just had a lot of fun with, because the chord progression is going, you know, G major, E minor, and then it goes to the F, which is, I mean, you know, derivative of the Mixolydian mode, which so there's
so you could add that in there.
There's kind of that blue sound, you know. It's not a major seventh and then there's a dominant seventh, and so that just kind of pushes me to go, well, then maybe I'll flatten the third all the way and we'll go straight blues sound. Yeah. So I kind of feel like there's a bit of those, you know, you can kind of get away with it and that kind of thing. But really, like my main goal with improvising and soloing, and if you know, something like Whiskey where the solo tends to be built off of a motif, like it's, you know, I'm playing melody, playing that melody.
Yeah.
I really kind of want to do my best to illustrate what the chords are doing underneath it. So, you know, I tend to like.
So I was saying, I don't even need to play the chords. You got the other side behind.
Yeah. So and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. And I mean, I feel like if you kind of target, like in any chord, the most important note, or not the most important note, but the note that has sort of the most DNA of the chord inside it. The note that says, when you hear it, says, "Hi, I'm this kind of chord," is the third.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could play. You can guess what the third is going to be, but you don't know 100%. And so like if I am trying to make sure that I hit those notes, the third, that really helps illustrate what the chord is. And I usually start people with, you know, if you're not sure how to show somebody what the chord is doing underneath it, make sure you work that third in.
It's like a third and then maybe a seven after.
Yeah, exactly. And then the seventh is the next note that tells you. Yeah. You know, because either I'm a major seventh or I'm a dominant seventh, and you can have a minor chord with a major seven. Yeah. Or a minor chord with a dominant seven. Those are drastically different sounding things. Yeah. So when you're looking at how to play those changes, it doesn't really matter what you do with the one, because I could take the one out completely and play a 9. It's still the same chord. It's really, you know, still has all the same qualities. It's a little dreamier, but it's still the same kind of chord. I can do the same thing with a minor. A little dreamier, but it's still a minor chord. Like nothing changes. Start adding in the seventh, or those qualities start to. So really, that's what you're looking to outline. And so even if I'm playing something that's kind of rock and rolly, a lot of fuzz, a lot of delay, it's kind of. The solo in Whiskey is definitely like a big kind of rocky moment. Yeah. I'm still trying to make sure that I'm doing that, and that's those are the kind of things that I personally, as a guitar player, really like. Yeah, I like those sounds. So I'm drawn to them, and I'm trying to do that.
Sure.
All the while, like making it sound fun and cool. And
yeah. So you of course you know these things, you think about them, but when it comes time, your ears just kind of guide you to what you want to hear.
Yeah. And I mean, if I struggle at first to get the right idea out, then I'll actually kind of work something out.
Yeah.
And then from there, other ideas are built. And
sure.
So,
That's cool. One thing that I really like about your albums is the way you've overdubbed your guitars and the way you build a track. For instance, like sometimes it's just one guitar and this chorus comes, another thing comes in.
Right.
A lot of it seems, it's like what I think of sort of subliminal.
Yeah.
But if you're not to, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
It does lift certain sections and it builds a song.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to some of the, I guess not main rhythm tracks, there's some really interesting stuff going on. And like in Better Together, that's what the track's called, right? Yeah, like you have this really cool sort of rhythm going on there in the chorus and stuff, right? Sort of funky sort of. So how do you go about some of those choices that you make in building that?
Like the more subliminal stuff. I mean, it really kind of comes down to a lot of those, especially on well, I mean, not especially on the Brothers Landreth record and on Whiskey, they're produced by Murray Pulver. Yeah. And he is really good at helping make choices like that. And our engineer as well is a guy named Paul Yee, dear friend, engineered Whiskey, and then a guy named Don Benedictson engineered Let It Lie. And so like everybody kind of has a hand in building the track, and you kind of come with the skeleton, right? Here's a chord progression, here's a melody, here's the song. And then you start to build things like, okay, how do we want to go to the chorus and we want it to be exciting, so how do we do that? Well, we could add guitars. Okay, well, how do we add guitars without them dominating
stepping on a part? Yeah.
And so like a lot of times, like if you take a simple part, like, you know, if you're like on Whiskey, for example, I don't even know if this is true, but there might be a part that's going in the solo. You know, chugging those eight.
Yeah.
If I want that to come up, maybe
you kind of have like a sort of a, sort of there's acoustic guitar sort of being strummed in there and stuff like that.
And those acoustic guitars are doubled, so I recorded the exact same part twice so that we can spread them out in the mix, and then, you know, you can bring one of those doubles up in the sections that you want to come up, so that nothing is necessarily taking up more space, but it just kind of gives adds some excitement. And, you know, textural things like, you know, there's all over Whiskey and all over, you know, songs like Better Together. There's guitars that are just going like.
Yeah, I could hear that, like stuff like that.
You know, that are not necessarily forward or something that you hear, but there's something that just help
lift it. And it's like, remember, I think too, you got like a sort of maybe it's a volume pedal or something like that, sort of swing it. It sounds like you're using a vibro on some of the stuff. There's a couple of things where
like a vibratone,
like a vibratone or vibrochamp or some sort of thing like that.
I love tremolo.
Or tremolo.
Vibrato. I like those effects. I like all the old like spring reverb, tube trim, and the old Fender amps. I really like that stuff. I think is a really tasty way of making things kind of sound cool. But just textural choices, building things that help the song go places. You know, because, you know, if you just listen to them on their own with just a vocal and acoustic guitar, they're, you know, it's not that that's a bad way to hear the song. It's just they're limited.
Yeah.
It's It's fun.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
Yeah. Do you find like so it's pretty beneficial to work with guys like Murray or like Paulie or something like that? It really kind of helps you to steer your ideas in a direction.
Well, and again, because like I'm a creature of habit, and so like with, you know, if left to my own devices, I can make a lot of the same choices, and so it's always good to have somebody go, hey, what about this?
Yeah.
And, you know, Murray and Paul and Donnie and you know, all the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with have been really cool at making great suggestions, but going, hey, why don't in your own way you find a way to do this? And then so then it's still me and my identity, but it's pushing me outside of that, like, no, but I only grind my coffee for 11 seconds. I couldn't possibly grind it for 10 or 13. That's insane. 12 is just too many. So if left to my own devices, I do tend to kind of go that place. So it's always good to have somebody go, hey man, try that. Oh, that's a wicked idea. Oh, I love that. And then it becomes a part of your vocabulary from that point on.
Yeah.
So it's always that, always sharing and growing and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll try something like Still Feel Gone. It's like sort of a 6/8 sort of, which I love on any track. As soon as I hear that, I love ballads myself.
Yeah,
so
man, I'm a sucker for ballads. Yeah.
Just awesome, man.
Thank you very
So,
much.
when you're getting a slide, what were some of how'd you? I'm really curious about how you sort of practice that. I mean, I've heard people say certain things, and I understand sort of the muting and that sort of involved, but with the melody and just that technique and your pitch and stuff like that.
That's something that I still constantly work on. I mean, in terms of practical things, anything that's hard, I try to practice.
Yeah.
So like, small movements, half steps. I do a lot of sort of work with trying to make sure that I can get in between notes that are close together and get them in tune.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest thing. And then, just accuracy. So like if I'm playing a pentatonic scale, I want to try and...
Yeah.
That was a terrible example of that, but... I want to work on those things. But yeah, muting is obviously, as you know, it's a pretty big part of it. But it's kind of a funny thing because there's not really much else to work on with the slide other than those things, and then just try to. I kind of tell people, like the majority of the work done on playing the slide is just trying to get it to the point where it doesn't feel uncomfortable on your finger.
Yeah.
And because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to do, and it feels limiting because you lose a finger and. You lose obviously mobility of that finger. Like there's a whole bunch of things that come with it. So a big part of it is just like so that it doesn't feel super unnatural when you put the slide on.
I saw like Gordy Johnson did a clinic, and he said when he was getting a slide, it was like he's like I was ride the TTC with it, do my dishes with it. I just wouldn't take it off. He's like go to sleep with it. It just became so it just became an extension. You were just kind of used to having on your finger. Yeah. Did it help with your singing at all? Do you find?
Oh, I don't really know, actually. I've never really made the connection between the two. I mean, I probably... they're probably more connected than I really think about, because I think that when I'm improvising with the slide on, I tend to kind of go to the more of a place sort of mentally that's close to, like, similar to singing than when I'm playing fretted. So yeah, it probably, but I mean, I think like the effort in terms of trying to, like, trying to play in tune is probably very similar to, you know, my pursuit of trying to sing in tune.
Okay.
You know, so that's...
So the fretless instruments are...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The voice, the fretless voice. Dang, sometimes I wish it did have frets. But, yeah, so I guess so. I mean, that's a great question and a great connection to make. But yeah, probably, they probably do inform each other a fair amount.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess right now you're working on a record, a full length, the EP, full length record.
Yeah, if all goes well, which it will. We're just we're just chipping away, and I mean I'm writing right now. I've done a little bit of recording already. Got a couple songs sort of done and in the can and ready to go get mixed.
Are you recording in Toronto?
Yeah. Part of it is going to get done here, and then I think some of it is going to get done in Manitoba as well.
Okay.
Just sort of depends on a few things, but yeah, and that's really exciting, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a little different than the things that I've recorded in the past. Like I'm collaborating with somebody on this project. We're writing together and sort of producing it together.
Cool.
So yeah, it's going to just be a little bit different, sounding different but the same. You know, it's not going to be like, you know, I'm not doing like a string quartet composition record or something like that. It's still going to be me singing and playing the guitar.
Yeah.
But just a little bit different than what I've done in the past, and it's really fun and exciting, and then we're slowly chipping away at another Bros Landreth record.
Cool.
So,
and you have a few things you've recorded already for...
Yeah, we got a handful of songs done, and we're just kind of waiting for the time to sit down and track some more. Yeah.
So when you guys got off the road, because you guys toured, because I know you released Let It Lie in Canada, then it got picked up from an American label in Nashville, and then you were touring like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So what's like that wear and tear of the road like? I know you guys got off and, you know, needed a break, and you go and you keep kind of going and tour again, right?
Punishment, I guess. Yeah.
It's good though. People want to see you, man, right? It's built. It's you know.
And ultimately, I mean, it's I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing to do at all times, but I do really love to do it, and it's kind of where my heart belongs, you know. Like, I mean, at least a little bit. Like, I love being home. I've been home since mid-November, with very few sort of live engagements.
Yeah. And
it's the longest I've been home in many years, and I've gotten pretty used to the idea of wearing pajamas and slippers and hanging out with my partner and our cats, and you know, it's pretty fun, because I mean, I've been on the road pretty solid since I was 23.
Yeah.
And I'll be 31 this year. So, and I mean, like, and before that I was on the road a fair amount as well, but, you know, really started getting busy and spending like more time away than home when I was like 23, 24. So it's been kind of a nice 7 years on the road, and now just kind of taking 4 months off and just like, hey, this is pretty cool.
Well, you're making music too, right?
Oh yeah,
getting the next thing started. Of course, right? It's just to be stationary for a bit, not on transit all the time, must be kind of nice after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you enjoy Toronto? You've been here for how long? When did you move here?
We've been here. We moved here in 2015, so it'll be 3 years.
And you told me you almost moved here like out of high school or something like that, right?
Yeah, I kind of tossed the idea around, and eventually, you know, opted not to. But I came here because my partner wanted to go to school. She got into George Brown College, and you know, and I mean, I'd spent a couple years on the road at that point. And she said, you know, is there any way we could live in another city? I was like, yeah, it's an airport. Yeah, that's all I need. So it's been really fun, and it's been interesting because I didn't move here for music, so it allowed me to kind of interact with the city in a different way, and you know, the pressure of like trying to find work wasn't there because I was already working on the road. So it was a really fun way to do it, to just kind of get to know the city as opposed to this place that I'm like, you know, because I know a lot of people who have come here as musicians, trying to work as musicians, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that experience because I wasn't trying to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think it was kind of nice. I mean, it's a great scene. It's a great city. Yeah.
I feel it's better than ever. Like, because like I know when I moved here, like there was like Chris Cadell was maybe probably about the only guy I could kind of like relate to in a way of, oh, here's a guitar player, singer.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? It wasn't, people weren't so excited about sort of a blues, rootsy sort of, or whatever.
It's
soul rock. It's kind of, and even the guitar players that have come up in the last years have been pretty good. Pretty, you know, something's kind of happening. It wasn't. I feel.
I think there's a bit of a comeback for that kind of music. You know, in terms of, I mean, it's always been there, but in terms of terms of like
people get
there's
excited.
a consumership for it.
Sure.
And people are excited about it again.
Yeah.
So I think that certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah, it's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to be alive. Yeah.
Sweet. So a couple more things is just thinking of like how Derek Trucks was the guy who got you into slide, and how you got to open for Tedeschi Trucks Band Winnipeg. So what was that? What was that experience or that call like?
Horrifying. It was very scary. No, I mean, I've had the chance to meet him a couple times, and I actually did a show with him on his Songlines tour back in 2007. Huh. So I'd met him back then as well, and got to after that show was really cool because I got to hang with him for a couple hours. It was for the Winnipeg Jazz Festival, and we played the show. It was so fun, and watching him play was like, you know, eye-opening. It was like really profound. And then we, you know, everybody in the band that opened, we were all just sort of poured out into the streets of Winnipeg. There's all these venues, right? It's for the Jazz Festival, all these venues are open, there's all kinds of music happening. We just sort of poured out into the streets, like so excited and fired up. And we walked past the patio of a very sort of famous Winnipeg haunt called the King's Head, and Derek was sitting on the patio having a beer with the singer Mike Madison, can't remember. Either way, and so I just said, hey man, I don't want to blow your cover here, but I just played the show with you, and man, like, thank you. And he was like, oh cool man, appreciate it. You want to have a beer? I was like, yes I do, very much. So then I sat and had many beers with him.
Awesome.
And that was one of my favorite memories. And then last summer getting to open up solo, and that was like my first big solo show. And it was scary, but he was a total gentleman, and band sounded better than ever.
Yeah, they're incredible.
Yeah, they really, really are. I've had the good fortune of seeing them quite a few times, probably 6 or 7 times now, just at various festivals and stuff, and they're always better than the last time I saw them, and they're always amazing. Like the band is always unbelievable, and it's always better than the last time, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Thing to accomplish as a band.
So, Bros Landreth, you guys are doing a show with Winnipeg Symphony in June?
Yeah, that's June 20th, and that's kind of a pie in the sky for us. We always thought, man, it'd be so cool to do one of these. But the Winnipeg Symphony's been doing pop shows for a long time, where they collaborate with a non sort of orchestral ensemble. Yeah. And so like pop bands, rock bands, whatever, folk singers and stuff. And so we always thought, man, that'd be so cool if we could do that. And so this year's happening. We got a guy arranging a bunch of songs off of Let It Lie, a couple songs off of Whiskey, for a 67-piece orchestra, which is gonna be insane. We're really, really excited about it.
Gonna record that, some DVD or live album?
We haven't talked about it.
It's just new, right? Fresh.
Yeah. There is going to be discussion about maybe trying to take it on tour. And bringing it to other symphonies. In which case, then I think it would be kind of dumb not to record it. At least record the audio. Yeah. But it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm really excited. Again, like being kind of the big music geek that I am, I'm just like so excited to hear my music presented that way.
Oh yeah.
You know, like
it's a trip, right?
Totally. I've had the chance to play with the symphony a couple times with different folks like that I was backing up, and it's like there's not many things that are cooler than playing with an orchestra. Like there really, really isn't. It is powerful, and they're quiet. like the orchestra is so quiet. When you're on stage with them, it's kind of mind-boggling. Like you can hear them play, and you could just talk like this. You know, of course, playing a rock band, everything's like 11.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really quite special. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, June 20th, WSO Centennial Concert Hall. Tickets go on sale February. Who cares? Pre-sale is February 7th, and I don't know when they go to the public. But we actually are offering as a package with the WSO is we have a travel agent that we use with the Bros, and we are offering a travel package if people want to come from, because it's such a unique and cool thing. We figured that there are some fans people crazy enough that they might hop on a plane, and so we've worked out a discount with a hotel in town and with our travel agent to book flights and a package if you want to come and see the band. Go to the symphony. It'd be pretty cool.
That's awesome. Hey man, it's been great doing. I really appreciate you doing this.
It's a pleasure. Absolutely, thanks for
sit down and talk. When I started this show, and I was making names of people I'd want. You were right at the top. So.
Oh, wonderful. Well, now now you gotta set your sights much higher. Raise your standards. No, thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it, man, and wishing definitely see a good future for you. There's just even seeing like I said, seeing Joey last night, he was just kind of really reaching and going for some things that
thank you.
That it's really inspiring. I think for guitar players, especially for me and everybody else who's a guitar geek. So what else? You have that going on? Couple records you're working on.
Yeah.
A couple shows, and you're just gonna keep doing it. Yeah.
Just keep chipping away at the thing. I mean, ultimately, my big goal is just to be able to continue doing this in the in any capacity really. But I love making records, and I love touring, and so I don't see there's no end of that in sight at the moment. And maybe when I'm an old man I'll have enough of it, but at this point, not yet. I'm not there yet.
Awesome. So check out Joey, joeylandreth.com, right? broslandreth.com. Yep. See when they're touring your city. You guys got to go. iTunes, Bros Landreth Let It Lie, Joey's solo EP Whiskey, and then of course the many great YouTube videos that exist out there.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the plug.
Expensive chord.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome,
Next
man.
week on Roseanne.
Killer, man. Thank you so much,
Oh,
man.
Such a pleasure.
That was fun.
Thanks. It was a fun chat.
No matter